Hello everybody. Once again, we're on Lone Oak Farms map, ready for another episode. I apologize, I have a cold, but I'm trying to work through it. Try to crank out another one here of what I hope is interesting to all. I'm kind of standing here over in their hay shed. We just finished cultivating, we finished picking up all the rocks. So now what I would like to do is plant. Obviously, that's the next thing we got to do. And we formerly had a little seed drill kind of sitting here. And you know what? I kind of just kicked it to the curb. It was too little. I know it eventually would get the job done, but I have a feeling we probably need to keep this moving along. I'm very sorry if this is going too slow for everybody. Maybe let's see. This is the one that we had in here, 3 meters, and I gotta say, in real life, what is that? That's 9 feet. No, the one they had on the farm. Probably have a picture of it somewhere. Maybe it was a little wider than that. Was it 15 feet? Just a standard John Deere seed drill. They'd never have a Vaderstat or that kind of thing up there. But let me see here. This is 6 meters. That'd be a little wider. It takes 180 horse. Um, this is a horse. This one is even wider. That's a 9 meter. That's about 27 feet. Probably could pull it. I don't remember how. I think our tractor could probably handle that. Um, there's no sense drawing this out. Can I swing $100,000 loan is the question. So let me see how much money the old banker will cough up. I get in here. Already 150 in debt. Let me just see. Can I blow this up to... Aha, I can. This is kind of putting me in hawk, but I'll just save this while I'm in here. But I have 102,000. Let's just go for it. Like my kids would say, I'm gonna send it. So I want this horse. It has, yeah, this is grass, this is wheat, barley. I'm not sure what we're going to plant up there. Probably wheat, because that'd be something that would be grown in this area. We'll have a little variety with the grass seed that we're doing. So I'm going to buy this. Yeah, ouch. Okay, that takes a whole bunch of cash. And now I'm going to go fetch it. Get my primary tractor here. Put on the beacons and we're gonna go on a country drive to the store. Head off to get our new seed drill. I've driven this route out the door, or out the entrance to the farm many times. Many times I've turned down this way, but I haven't often at the end of this road turned up the Sunnyview Road to head up towards where the store is, but that's all right. Trying to think in real life now. I don't know if they continue using that same seed drill, that's about 15 feet. I know that doesn't seem like much, but, when you get to rolling over a field, it doesn't take as long as you would think, depending on the speed you're going to make some real headway. So we'll just head on up there and get our new purchase. I suppose I could have just leased it for a little bit, but that's all right. And I'll maybe hop in cab here so I can negotiate this turn without killing anyone or anything. I don't think he has traffic on coming up this hill. There we go. There's kind of some distant family relation that lives in the house off to the right anymore. So I'll get on down here. I think I mentioned in a previous video, I'm also kind of revisiting an old map that I really enjoyed in Farmstead 15 called Belden Valley. And I gotta say, I get a little confused as to which side of the road I should drive on. Over on that map, I try to drive on the left side of the road and be very careful about that. But in here, obviously, I can't do that or I get creamed by all this traffic. We're just heading on up the road, and I know earlier in this video I had some pictures kind of along this route, and you know, really kind of in these trees over here. Maybe it's that house over there. It's kind of a historic house. I think it's called the Geer House, Geer. I think they had a homestead way, way back in the day, one of the earliest ones, and that's kind of where they put down their roots. There's a few areas around here named for that family name. Whoa, this is a big cruiser, so hopefully this means it won't take long to get across the field that we're going to plant. And it's already set up on wheat. Looks like we can put fertilizer in it too, so we'll get a batch of that in while we're at it. Off we go. In real life, where we just were is just kind of a bare dirt, bare lot there, if you will. To the left, I did some modding on the map beyond what Bullock Bill did, and I set up an area kind of to put a vineyard placeable in. There are wine grapes grown in the area, including an area I pointed out, I think, in the last video. So I wanted to check that in there. I had another placeable area to put a winery. I don't know where this series is going. You know, I already played it. I don't know if this is of interest, because I frankly can't hardly believe it myself. I had this on a server, and even prior to that, when Bullock Bill was working on the map, he gave it to me, a copy of it, somewhere kind of in the middle of it, and I played the stuffing out of it during that time. I don't know how many hours, but it racked up a lot. You know, even just a partially done map. It was close enough that I just wanted to spend some time on it anyhow. Ooh, you know what? I got some cover. We'll see if we can make it through here. I got a kind of old cab. But then we put it on the server, and this is where, like I say, I can't hardly believe what the server log said. It claimed that we put in over 10,000 hours on Lono Farms map, and I'm not sure I can believe it. You know, when you do run the math on that, that's several years, that just seems impossible. So I don't know how it tabulated its data, but that's kind of what it said. And suffice it to say, you know, I've enjoyed this map to the fullest. So, but we'll see how long the series goes. Once again, it was Atomic67 who encouraged me to have a series on this, as I actually worked here and have some experience with the real life area. That's what I'm trying to do. Hopefully I can take this into the building, and I'm sorry, I'm using blinkers, or, you know, we call them blinkers here, but I think in the UK perhaps they're called indicators. You know, we all speak the same language between here in the UK, but it's interesting how we use it a little bit differently in some cases. Let's see. Oops. Put the candle down. Alright, I'll take my beacons off. I'll just manually zoom in. Okay, so let's see, is that close enough to get the seeds? Oh, it is, okay. I guess as we're seeing there, we'll fill her up with wheat. I have no idea how much I need to plant the field over there. We'll get some fertilizer next. We'll get him going. We'll keep giving our tractor here a workout up in the hills. I think this is where we get fertilizer. Or so I thought. Maybe it's over here. There we go. And well, look at that achievement. Okay, now I'm bankrupt according to this. Well, let me close that lid. I'll just borrow a little bit to get north of bankruptcy. Can't even hardly buy a piece of bread. I know over on my Gelman Valley map, I am substantially in the hole. That's one of the most challenging maps I've ever played, and I've been seeing more red ink than positive. So I'm going to head out to the field. We're going to get him going. And I want to share a few pictures, kind of like we had previously. This bad boy is big enough that, well, maybe what I'll do, I'll just take the outer round. I seem to recall there's been a few issues doing the opening round for the hired help in the past. Maybe I should consult my seasons menu. Aha. Yeah, we're still on the first day. So whether we're here in the spring or would have been in the fall, I think a lot of times wheat in this area tends to be planted in the fall. I don't know that there's many spring plants, kind of like we're doing now. If it's going to be grown at all, it tends to be planted in the fall and then overwintered. But that's all right. I know it can be done, but I think maybe it's a little more risky. And I think you end up having a better crop if you plant it in the fall. But we are planting it here in the spring. Here's us taking down both our seeds and fertilizers, so that's a good sign that something's happening. Here's the good old pond, which we could always see hot summer days with its inviting cool water. Occasionally we would go down there and go take a swim, but honestly not as often as you might think. And maybe it's because the pond water was a little dirty or whatever, I don't know, but I think part of it was just we were so busy with farming. During the summers we didn't often head down over there to go swimming, but we did do it a time or two. I'm trying to think in real life just how far across that pond is. It's obviously bigger than how it appears, in game here. And I have this memory, there was a couple cousins I have who were from the Midwest. They grew up on a corn and soybeans farm. And for a number of summers, they came out to work on Grandpa's farm and with our uncles, right along with me. And so I have a lot of memories of being with them. And of any of my cousins, I probably know them the best, at least those that, don't live here in the local area. Just have had a ton of fun with them over the years, and a lot of memories with them. But one of them, we were standing at the pond on one shore, kind of the western shore. Actually, put on GPS. I can do that, right? Let me get up here straight. Oh, what's that blue line there for? Let me take that off. There we go. I'll get a straight line out of it. I want to add it here. But the older of the two cousins took a rock, I kid you not, the size of your fist, and he threw it literally over the pond. And I can't throw things to save my life, so I'd be throwing stuff out there and it barely would get halfway into the pond, maybe not even that far. And he threw it and it landed, we saw it land on the far shore of the pond, and boy, it's got to be over 200 feet. I mean, he just had a whale of an arm to wing it that far. So he was a pretty strong kid. We were all kids back then. I look at him now, and I say look at him now, he's probably still got strength, but there's probably no way that he could pull that off now. He's kind of like me. He's in middle age, comfortable. Hey, oh, how did I turn off? Well, that's just silly. I almost missed it. Fortunately, I was climbing up the hill, and I wasn't just yakking too hard that I missed it. Get ourselves some wheat in here. Let's see kind of where Probably set up the GPS on the other side just to get a straight line down the hill. And when I worked on the farm, by the way, the seeding process isn't something that I tended to be involved in. I never seeded it myself. There's, occasionally would be peripherally involved, maybe, depending on the time of the year and whether I was available to come help. More likely if I was involved at all, I was standing on the back of the seeder, eating dust, making sure all the little that seed was pouring out every hole and getting down to where it needed to be. And sometimes you'd run out of seed as you got closer to the end, and so just making sure that each little spot had seed going to it. That tended to be what my part of it would be. So, and unlike farming sim, oh, I was going to set up a GPS again. Oh, look at that! It's just perfect. Just set up for it. It's the same one I had on the other side of the field. Unlike farming sim, where you can go over the top of seeded ground again and again and again, like if I were to back up and do the section again, it wouldn't use any seed or fertilizer. Well, that isn't what happens in real life. I mean, if you go over it twice, you're going to put down the same amount that you put down before. So I know you need a little bit of experience when you're drilling seed, and I know that's true also in the Midwest. It's you don't put a dummy on the tractor to handle seeding. It's someone who's got some experience behind them and is quite on the ball. There's a lot that can go on in the tractor when seeding is taking place. Well, so let's see if I put you on higher. Can I trust you? Whoa, 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 whoa. No, 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 evidently I can't. You're heading off across the field. I'll do. Let me try that again. Field alternative helper. It must be specific to the tractor. Oh, I gotta hit OK. I can't hit back, right? So let's try that. Okay. Now I think it's gonna calculate going around. Let me just make sure real quick it isn't popping an error. Yeah, it looks alright. Okay. Well, he's thinking that over. Okay, follow the hill down. There you go. Turn, turn. Good lad. Okay, so we're about 15 minutes in. I think maybe what I'd like to do this time is, where I've in the past I've shown you some pictures kind of the general area, and I got loads more to share and show. There you go, back up. That's a fence up there. Good job. Yeah, so I'm kind of glad I took the opening round because I think sometimes the opening round is confusing to the hired help. But I'll segue here to a few other pictures that were taken. Well, that's obviously the map. Let me see here. I think I started some up. Is it this here? I'll just put this on full screen. This one is dated, of course, 1995, so it's a very old picture by now. When I look back and think of the 90s, that seems like just yesterday. I would have been a teenager at the time. I would have been in college, in this picture. Well, not literally in college, but that's kind of during the time that I would have been in at university working on my accounting degree. Obviously, this is a lone oak tree, and it's kind of looking down over the hill where we are at the spot where the cherry orchard would have been years ago. So obviously at this time it had already been torn out, was turned into grass seed field. The grass kind of at our feet is windrowed, so it isn't combined yet. So, and that's pretty typical about this time of year. It's not surprising that it isn't done yet. So probably based on how the windrows look, I'm guessing they probably would have been cut a week and a half or something before this. It looks ready to thresh. But kind of up there, due northeast a little bit. I don't see Mount Hood. It looks pretty cloudy over here, so clouds a lot of times hides a mountain. But obviously in Lone Oak map, we would see the uh, mountain kind of up here. But yeah, there's the tree. And on the tree, by the way, it's when you look at the map, you can see how the farm got its name, because there is indeed a tree sitting up there. But you could also say, well, there are tons of trees all over the place. This one, okay, it stands alone, but there's probably other trees that stand somewhat alone. I mean, I think in the previous video, when we went down the right of way towards their canyon property, there's a scrub tree along there, but nobody cares about it. But everybody makes a big deal about this lone oak tree or whatever. Maybe because of its prominence on the hill. But you'd say there's lots of trees, so who cares about this particular one? Well, I guess that's just kind of how it is. But there are a lot of people that have come to this particular tree, whether they are family relation or not. There have been all sorts of hanky-panky that has been discovered up here. I say hanky-panky. Sometimes it's as simple as, maybe there is a couple that want to look at the sunset and they can sit at this tree and oh dear, I see that little circle. And they look off to the west, and it's a beautiful view. You're sitting up here on a kind of a pinnacle of the field at a high point, so you can look over the western hills and see the sunset. And of course, that's no problem. I mean, nobody's harming anything. It's private property, but there is a dirt road just on the other side of the tree here. Kind of like we see in game. Let's go check on this guy. He's down here. But there is a dirt road that people can access, and I don't know that the family has any particular problems with it. But there have been some other things, done up here. I don't know if people have shot off fireworks, or they've come up here to, let's say, engage in adult activities because they think they're way out in the country and nobody but God sees them. Well, it's not as sparsely populated as you might think, and it's amazing how people can forget that. They'll come up here, and I remember I have this memory as a kid of, I think my grandfather and uncle suspected that something was going on up here. They didn't let me go with them. It's probably a good thing. I think my eyes would have been branded by what I saw. But yeah, there was a couple up here engaging in some activities, and they were asked to leave. So there's been those kinds of things that happen over the years, and and also I would say disrespectful activity, not just of this particular farm, but it seems in general that when people drive in the country and they see an open field, some of them just assume that it's calling their name or asking them to come drive on it, even though it doesn't belong to them. And there's some instances, and matter of fact, just the other day I was driving up the road, quite a bit west of Lone Oak, and there was a pickup kind of sitting out in a field, and it looked a little muddy. And probably what happened is some kid took the truck off the road and decided to go mudding just for kicks, and then got the thing stuck. And in the winter, if there's a good field of grass in there established, it's probably not going to be too muddy. Maybe a little bit muddy, but you probably won't get stuck. But there are other fields when it's just bare dirt that if you wander out there, you're going to bury that thing up to the axle. And what's kind of amusing sometimes, these kids go out there, they get stuck, and then, then they kind of have to go hand in hand to the farmer and ask for help getting their truck out or whatever they got stuck in there. And all the better if they take their girlfriend out there and embarrass the stuffing out of her in that whole process when he has to go to the farmer to get help to get him out. So, all that to say, there's a lot of people. You can see this tree from a lot of different areas, angles around the surrounding countryside. There's been a lot of people that have gone up there to it. Most people are generally respectful. A few of them haven't been. But uh, but yeah, it's kind of a landmark in the area, even though it is one tree amongst literally millions of them. This is a picture of my grandfather. Maybe I should just go to the map, kind of show roughly where this is. If I go back to here, we're kind of way down over the hill. This would be on the home place of the farm, kind of right down in this area right here. This looks kind of flat in here, but honestly, this is on a pretty steep hill. This goes down quite a ways over here. The dim map isn't perfect how it took it in, but grandfather is running his cat somewhere along here, kind of along the fence line. And the cat looks brand new. I know there was a time there, I think it's a D4 caterpillar. There was a point in there at some point we had the thing repainted, and so it looks just great. But I know a couple years after this, or whenever it was, when we took it down in the canyon and went logging, it got scratched up in a hurry. Yeah, the new paint, it doesn't last very long. So in some ways, why bother? But I know we paint it all to keep kind of preserve the metal underneath. And I believe they still have this cat. It's just handy for these kinds of projects, for grubbing out some brush, just handling things that you don't want to beat up your tractors on. So I think there's a couple pictures of him working on it here. And I have lots of memories of watching Grandpa run the cat. And yeah, this one here, you can kind of see where he's at. If I go to the map again, it's kind of looking this way. I don't know if you can see through the trees. Roughly that angle, that shows kind of where he's working. But I particularly have a lot of memories of being with Grandpa down in the canyon on the cat. I wasn't on the cat, but and maybe there'll be a time for some logging stories later. But when we were logging down there, this was Grandpa's home. He was the one that pulled most of the logs to the landing in the cat, and I set choker cables and hooked them up to the winch line back here to help in the process. That was kind of my role. Right now, that cat is looking pretty good, although the dirt is starting to defile it. Yeah, this is another year, just kind of a random picture. I don't know that these were their bales. This, is this the lone oak tree? I wonder if the lone oak tree is kind of up to the left. So this is just looking south. One particular harvest. I think this was past, yeah, this is 1999. I graduated college and I would have started my career as an accountant kind of the summer of 1996. So I was no longer working up here, but you can see I think this was a ryegrass field. They got a boatload of bales off after the harvest. I think as they've switched more to ryegrass, they've tended to do a whole lot more baling. But I think at the time, this particular time, they farmed that out, so some other contractor came in to handle all these. So this, if we go to our map, is probably right about like so. Just kind of in this area close to the farm, but just looking up the hill, but it didn't include the tree. Let me go check our. There we go. He's doing all right, planting all this. Don't doubt me, he says. All right, we'll switch back over and try to get a couple more pictures in. And I'm probably very slow and I'm talking too much. Yeah, this picture was also taken October of '99, as you can see. This was one of the pieces of equipment they had up here for many years. It says Ford, but I believe under the hood, what it really is a Steiger. A 4x4 tractor just has the Ford insignia on it, decals, whatever. I don't know how many years they had it. They purchased it from another local farmer and got some use out of it, maybe for a decade and a half. They don't have it anymore. They replaced it with a John Deere. As their farm size grew and their equipment needs grew along with it, and it just seems kind of the same old story, whether it's American or other agriculture, just keeps getting larger and larger as a lot of the smaller farms get out of the business. I spent some time in this tractor. I think they got it after I was working up here full time, but I came back a time or two and enjoyed using this tractor in the field. It's kind of a whole different ball game driving a four-wheel drive tractor like this versus the regular wheeled tractors. But you get used to it at some point. But really cool to had a good time running it. Oh, and in terms of where this picture was taken, maybe I'll just show that. And maybe someone will put in the comments that they're tired of me showing on the map where everything was taken. But I believe, well, let's see here. Let me look at that again. Yeah, that's kind of where it is. So this was kind of sitting down over here. So right down here where they store the bulk seed, kind of sitting right here near the fence is where this was parked. This is a shot from the house, and this is an elk that's out in the field. The lone oak tree would kind of be up the hill, so this is probably sometime in the fall. Yeah, it appears it's kind of a September uh, time period. When I was a kid, there really wasn't any elk in the area to speak of. It seems like over time there have been more elk come back to the local area. I seem to recall as a kid when I was early grade school, where I grew up, which wasn't here, is a little bit further to the west. You'd occasionally see a deer come through, and then there was a long dry spell where you didn't even hardly see any deer, let alone elk. But now the deer are very plentiful, and it's probably just the management style of the Oregon Fish and Wildlife Department in how they try to manage the populations and what have you. Now there's deer everywhere. There's elk in the area. Of course, there's a lot of other critters too, coyotes and whatnot, that we hear occasionally from our home. I want to point something else out here too that's kind of special. My grandfather, Lee Kinsey, I don't know that he ever really considered himself a farmer. I think his preference would have been to be a rancher. He routinely would refer to his farm as a ranch. If we were away from it and we were going to head back to it, he would refer to it as we're going to head back to the ranch. And he actually has his own brand. And this is my grandmother's handwriting here. She took this picture, I'm assuming. Um, and so she wrote up here, elk roaming the rocking LK. That's kind of a rocker symbol. Occasionally with their cattle, they have put this brand on them, but he has a registered brand, the Rocking LK. I'm assuming somewhere you can probably look that up. And, Grandpa's passed on, I don't know what it takes to maintain a brand. I presume they still own it up there. But I just thought I'd point that out. He got his start kind of as a logger. He ended up being a farmer, but he also was a stockman and had a heart for animals and did a fair amount of beef cattle raising on the farm. Nothing major or big, but enough that he wanted his own brand. So I thought I'd point that out. And here's a picture of him in one of his trucks. I think they still have this truck. That's my Grandpa Lee. That's in another year. He was a man that had kind of a hard life, but a good one at the same time. With family, there's a lot of good times you can have with family that paves over a lot of the tough times that life can throw at you. And where is this taken, this particular picture? Let me find it on the map. Like I mentioned in a previous video, these two fields, this one here and this one to the west of the pond, to the east of the pond, is where Grandpa did a lot of haying. And I suspect it's as I look at this, I almost think there's two pictures in here of him. Yeah, there's another. Okay, so now we know what side he's on. This one was zoomed in, I think. So here's another one. He's obviously, the pond is up over here in the picture. So he's on the west side. And as you can see, one of my uncles is running a 4020 John Deere tractor with a front end loader and this hay gripper up here. At the time they used a bale accumulator, these small bales, and so it would accumulate them in pads of 8. Then he could come along with this attachment here on the front end loader, pick them up and stack them on the tractor, or excuse me, on the truck. Of course, then on the other end, we didn't unload it with that. We did all the unloading by hand, and so I handled a fair amount of hay back in the day. Nowadays, I think they do it all much larger bales. They have a forklift when they handle it down there, so it's much less handwork that they have to do. So I think that's kind of helped preserve some life and limb a little bit. Let's go back in game one more time. We'll see how our hero is doing. Oh, look at that. Looks like he's still planting the field like a champ. We look this way off to see Mount Hood up there, which is a dormant volcano, by the way. I don't know when it last erupted, before I was born, but it's been dormant ever since, but it technically is a volcano. And just looking at the time here, it appears I have chowdered up another half hour quite easily, so I think I'm gonna let the episode go at this point here, and thank you all for watching and stopping by to visit my little series I'm doing here. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you the next time. Take care for now. Bye-bye.